Okay, so this is probably the last time I'll vote on a debate because it takes up too much time. But I did want to vote on this one. So let's see, refresh, see if we get any more votes. No, it's 11-10. I don't know who won. I did read somewhat, but I didn't read the whole thing yet. It is Zelensky is one of the most effective presidents on earth today. What he originally wanted to debate was that he was a good president or something like that. I forget the original title. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, well, I think he should have stuck with the original resolution. I think it would have been more interesting debate, and he was kind of talked out of it, and I wish he wasn't. I'm gonna first of all see because from what I read ahead, it seems like they're both trying to not exactly debate the resolution. You know, if one wanted to press the issue on the resolution, and then I'll take it seriously. But I don't think either one of them are going to press the issue, and we'll see what they're actually debating. One of the most effective. Effective at what? So I don't like the resolution. Effective at what? I think this guy is Ukrainian, and so likely not a native English speaker. This guy, you see, I don't know. Country unknown. And it says female, but you can never believe that. I don't think he's a native English speaker either. He might be. So try not to be too hard on them when it comes to the awards argument, sources, legibility, and conduct. It was grammar before, and now it's legibility. That's a better one. Like I don't get too harsh on grammar. That doesn't appear to be a category anymore. Okay. I welcome my opponent and appreciate the challenge. It's no secret that Zelensky, who initially advocated for peace, played a role in shaping a new Ukraine society. However, he faced unprecedented challenges that no previous Ukrainian president has encountered. First, a pandemic, and then a full scale war. I don't think COVID 19 was technically a pandemic, but I do think we're all calling it that, so that's fair. Call it that if you want. Despite the obstacles, he has achieved remarkable successes, uniting international coalition in support of Ukraine, launching the land market, implementing a digital platform, DIA, whatever that is, and preserving the country's sovereignty against aggression of a major power, and all this in just 2 years. Well, it's yet to be seen if he actually protects it. I don't think Russia was after the entire territory anyway. I don't think they want to hold the entire thing. So I think that sovereignty is going to stay. Well, I guess you could say they might want to install a puppet or something. So we'll go pro, and we're just going to do his arguments here. And what I do is I like to take the arguments. No, that's not right. Okay, his arguments for why it's effective. Each one deserves a new space because each one is a new thing. I feel like this is a separate point. The speed at which you did it is a separate point. So let's see pros arguments. I think he could have did a better job in round one, outlining more things. And even just so these things stick in your head, if you uniting an international coalition in support of Ukraine. So that is what you call like a type of that's the assertion. That's the argument. So what you want to do is you want to take this and you want to put support for it. You want to talk about how he did that or in what ways he did it. Um, you might say he went to the UN, he gave a speech that really got international powers on his side, just some support for the statement. Launching the land market. It's not good that I don't know what the hell that is. It's your job to kind of explain it. Implementing the digital platform DIA. I feel like I should know what that is, but I don't. So you could maybe elaborate on it because I don't know what the hell that is. Con, thanks for having me. Before anything, it's not that I don't like him or anything, but I picked up the debate just as a challenge, so who cares, dude? Nobody cares what the hell your opinion is. You're debating. You might disagree with what you're arguing. He might disagree with it. It doesn't matter. My rebuttal: why Zelensky is one of the most effective presidents. Okay. I appreciate my opponent's perspective. This is wasting time. Who gives a shit? But I disagree with the claim that Zelensky is one of the most effective presidents today. Okay, well, I don't think he's going to do this. See, I think this debate is going to turn into whether he's a good president or not. And I'm fine amending the resolution in my head to, is he a good president? Because I don't think this guy's going to say, well, he's not going to list other presidents that are more effective, which I think you should do. Like, list like other presidents today that are more effective if you really want to stick with the resolution. While he has certainly played a significant role in Ukraine's struggle, effectiveness is measured results, not just efforts. He's been a fucking puppet. Honestly, he's he can move the needle here and there, but he's basically a puppet for a bigger game. And as are most politicians. So unity does not equal effectiveness. Despite gaining international support, Ukraine is still heavily dependent on foreign aid. The survival of a nation should rely solely on external funding and military assistance. If Zelensky were truly effective, wouldn't Ukraine have a stronger self-sustaining economy and military by now? It has in their defense, he didn't have much time, and he has because of the support he garnered, he has the third most effective. He has the third strongest military in Europe. The only stronger militaries are China and Russia. Like if you take that force that he's working with right now, they would beat any country other than those two. And he's fighting Russia to a standstill for the most part. So it's not. They're doing pretty good with what they got. So we're gonna go rebuttal. Domestic struggles. Ukraine remains in a state of war. Despite his leadership with millions displaced and infrastructure destroyed, he has banned opposition parties and restricted media, raising concerns about democratic principles. There's a positive argument. So that's a positive argument. Let's see. Let's see how he responds to that. All right, there we go. Here's his positive argument so far. Achievements are overshadowed by war. My opponent mentioned the land market and digital platform Dia. Who knows if it's pronounced that way? D. Why is there two I's? That feels wrong. But these domestic achievements are small compared to the overwhelming challenges Ukraine faces. A truly effective leader would prioritize strong economy, national security, and long-term stability over minor reforms. Okay, we'll call that a rebuttal. Although I don't know this is really saying much. I mean, you think a country at war is prioritizing national security, right? How do I bold this? I'm gonna bold his arguments that have. Just so I don't get things mixed up. And just to make this stand out more, let's go even further. Go. Sorry. Bold. There we go. And I won't bold this stuff down here yet because he hasn't. I probably removed these bolts, but there's no rebuttals yet because it hasn't got to his opponent's round. Could another leader have done better? We'll never know, right? Would Ukraine have been in a better position under different leadership? Many argue a more strategic approach to diplomacy before war could have prevented or minimized conflict. Well, that's not proof that. eh, Many argue that more strategic. How was his? How could it have been more strategic? A truly effective leader anticipates crisis and mitigates them rather than just reacting to them. Okay, no shit. I don't understand. I mean, is there proof that he didn't anticipate it? In conclusion, Zelensky is undoubtedly a significant leader, but the effectiveness needs bringing tangible, lasting stability to a nation. While he has rallied support, Ukraine remains in turmoil, dependent on foreign aid, and struggling with democratic integrity. Okay, so his arguments are basically Pro's arguments are is he's handling crisis pretty well, and he's been throwing a lot of crises. And his argument is that um, facing crisis is essentially a bad thing to start with, and that in the face of this, he's uh, risking democratic integrity. Okay, let me see. Can I even pause this recording? That pause it. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. There we go. Now we're unpaused. All right. I was wondering. It took me a second to unpause it. I might be able to stop taking notes because these are short rounds and the points are pretty simple. We'll see. We'll see if I can hold them in my head or if I'm gonna keep taking notes. Efficiency measured not only by efforts but by results. My opponents claims that Zelensky made many mistakes at the beginning of the invasion. Well, that wouldn't even be proof that he's not very effective, would it? Because everybody's gonna make mistakes. That's true, and the president himself has admitted it. However, we talk about results rather than initial miscalculations. Zelensky, as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Ukraine, can present concrete achievements. The Kharkiv operation, the complete liberation of Kharkiv region from Russian forces. How'd they get it, buddy? They lost them under him, didn't they? I mean, I assume. The liberation of Kherson, a strategically important regional center. Well, why did they have control to start with? The withdrawal of Russian troops from Kiev and Chernihiv regions, a result of strong Ukrainian resistance, or a result of like a pullback, because that's not really their goal. They don't want Kiev. We know they don't. We know what regions they want, because we know what regions they've been messing around with. They don't want to hold too much. There's a problem with a country holding too much territory as well, which people forget. These successes did not happen by chance. I think, I don't know where these are. I have to look at the map. But I think definitely the withdrawal of Russian troops from Kiev didn't happen by chance, but it didn't happen as a result of anything Zelensky did. They weren't going to hold that anyway. They might have went there to go do some strategic damage and then just retreat. Economy in wartime and peacetime. Realistic expectations. My opponent argues that if Zelensky was truly effective, Ukraine would have a self-sufficient economy. However, this is an oversimplified view that does not take real conditions into account. Economy in wartime. Missile strikes. Systematic Russian attacks destroy factories and infrastructure. Ukraine physically cannot develop its industry when key facilities are bombed. Limited resources. Ukraine has to spend everything on the front lines, or the country will cease to exist. The need for air defense. Strong air defense system could protect enterprises, but it had to be built from scratch, which was impossible without support from allies. Economy in peacetime. A corrupt system Zelensky inherited. A Ukraine where corruption existed for decades. 2 years is too short of a time to completely reform the economy. The COVID-19 pandemic, Zelensky came to power in 2019, and by 2020, the entire world plunged into economic crisis caused by the pandemic. Was it caused by the pandemic, or was it caused by the retarded reaction to it? Thus, expecting Ukraine to achieve full economic independence under such conditions is unrealistic. Well, I mean, you could argue full economic independence for any country is unrealistic. We live in a global society. I think you're giving your opponent too much here by saying full economic independence is like kind of conceding that full economic independence is important. In fact, full economic independence could be a security threat because then you don't have other parts of Europe willing to send you a bunch of money and resources. Restriction of media and opposition, a necessary measure in wartime. My opponent believes that banning certain media and opposition parties violates democracy. However, it certainly violates freedom. All right, because you can kind of vote for tyranny. So, I mean, we've attached a lot of stuff to the word democracy, but democracy is just the system for how we vote in leaders. But it can be tyrannical. And I think that's one of the reasons the left focuses on the word democracy so much, because they kind of acknowledge that they want to be tyrannical, that they want to use the government to force certain norms and violate free speech, etc. However, any country at war must control its information space. The U.S. during World War II introduced censorship on war coverage, launched powerful propaganda, and mobilized the population. In turn, Japanese Americans, I touch on this in the comments, they don't. And look, when I'm being critical of either side's arguments, I'm not um, saying I'm discounting their arguments because Khan has to criticize them himself, right? Or with Khan's arguments, Pro has to criticize them. So I'm just inserting my opinion while I'm talking. But the opinion isn't going to affect my decision making if I can avoid letting it affect it. The Ukraine, France, and USSR all implemented strict control over the media and potentially dangerous political groups during wartime. That proves that stuff is normal. It doesn't prove that stuff is good for democracy, nor does that prove it's uh, good for anything other than the continued existence of your country and um, maybe Americans are arrogant because we don't have to deal with war coming to us so much. But a lot of us just think it is better the entire country get destroyed than freedom be destroyed. They just fight to the bitter death for freedom. I'll make sure I get the volume up on my mic. Yeah, I do because I turned it down in case I was accidentally recording. But yeah, it's we have a phrase in some areas: "Give me liberty or give me death." So no, the continued existence of the country is not more important than 5 more minutes of freedom. And I think that's an extreme take. It's one that's right now it's more on the conservative side that would believe that. But things shift sometimes. I think at one point the left thought that too. Argument, refutation. Why Zelensky's leadership is still in doubt. Military success is strategy or circumstance. My opponent argues that Zelensky's leadership led to key military victories, like the Kharkiv operation or the liberation of Kherson. However, these were not solely a result of Zelensky's strategic decisions. Well, who would? So what? What does that mean? You're not saying anything. No decision a leader makes that results in success. Like, no, none of that success is ever 100% the leader's fault. They have people helping them. They have resources. They have people. The Kharkiv offensive was largely successful due to Western intelligence support and Russian military miscalculations. Okay. Rather than solely Zelensky's leadership, that doesn't say anything. That doesn't say he's a bad leader. What are you saying? A good leader is going to turn down help or not take advantage? Like, okay, so Western intelligence support. Would a good leader not use that? Russian military miscalculations. Would a good leader not take advantage of that? I don't understand these arguments. I guess the arguments could be that it mitigates Pro's arguments. Like, it doesn't prove he's a good leader. All right, I get it. That mitigates his. At the time, there was no decisive Ukrainian counteroffensive. Rather, logistical difficulties on Russia's part led to the withdrawal of Russian troops from Kiev and Kharkiv. The Kherson retreat was a Russian strategic withdrawal, not direct Ukraine military victory, probably. Key point, military victories in war often result in a combination of factors rather than just one leader's decision. What does that mean? We're arguing if he's one of the most effective leaders in the world, or if he's a good leader. Yeah, I think we settle for good leaders, showing, according to both their sides, how they're arguing anyway. So nobody's arguing that he's like, I don't think anybody's arguing that he's solely responsible for anything. That's silly. Economic expectation leadership still matters in wartime. My opponent contends that's unrealistic to anticipate a self-sufficient economy for Ukraine during a war. I will say, Pro, you could have like really went on this. You could have showed how uh, the agreements he's working out with the United States for mineral rights, for example, would result in more wealth for Ukraine. Assuming he actually doesn't decide, hey, it's more important to kill Ukrainians than make a deal with Trump. So I could tell you now, it's a side note, but a minerals deal, they're talking about taking minerals that aren't being utilized by Ukraine now, so it's not stealing resources and giving them a percentage of the profit, so like split profit. And they're also talking about they can't let them into NATO, right? That's not going to happen. So what they're talking about doing is tying up American economic interests with Ukrainian economic interests to make because if Russia invades, they don't want to risk war with the United States. So this is more of protection than could be gotten otherwise. And I think Zelensky kind of blew that up because he isn't smart enough to realize how much of a security guarantee that would give him and how much wealthier that would make his country. But maybe he's just trying to, debate a few extra percentage on that deal or something. Maybe we don't know what's going on in the background. While Ukraine faces Russian attacks, other wartime economies have still found ways to grow. Example, the UK and US during World War II managed to boot industrial protection and sustain economic growth despite bombings and war. These boosts came after World War II. During World War II, there was lots of food rations and stuff like that. So these boosts came kind of after the war. Maybe a little bit during, but mostly after. And despite bombings, the United States wasn't bombed. There's Pearl Harbor, and that was it. Zelensky's anti-corruption efforts have. And by the way, if it doesn't, where are we at? I'm not providing rebuttals for Pro. I'm just saying things I have issues with. Okay. Zelensky's anti-corruption efforts have been inconsistent. Tell me about it, man. He tried to have like a political opponent locked up, which I guess is a hallmark of the left now, with them trying to lock up Trump, Marine Le Pen, and uh, they're going after that was it Romanian leader, trying to put him in jail, and they put the Philippine former conservative president in jail. So that's just like a thing with the left. They don't really like democracy. If you get too dangerous as a conservative, especially if you're like an anti-establishment conservative, they're going to try to lock you up. And they have the courts and stuff on their side because uh, the managerial elite are more likely to fill up judge roles than populists. Blue collar workers who, even when they are wealthy, usually got there from building their own plumbing businesses and stuff. They're not lawyers and court people. Example, so mismanagement of foreign aid has caused donor nations to question how effectively funds are being used. This is kind of a propaganda thing, okay? So Americans don't like the government of America likes meddling around the globe, but most Americans want us to be isolationist. Like, yeah, the American government likes playing world police, but the citizens want isolationist policies. We want strictly defensive wars, and we don't want to be global police. We want every and there's arguments from the elites that being world police, basically the only superpower has allowed us so much economic prosperity. But so the mismanagement of foreign aid, and I gotta let the point stand if it doesn't like get rebutted, but it's just something that us citizens use. We're like, oh, where'd the 100 million go? It's something we use to kind of point at things we could get to force leaders' hands to maybe tighten the belts a little. A great leader anticipates economic hardships and implements strong measures to stabilize the economy. Blaming war alone ignores mismanagement within Zelensky's administration. What about If you know economic hardship is coming and you know it's impossible to stabilize the economy, then what does a great leader do? What if that stuff is inevitable? Then how does a great leader respond to that? You got to guide us through the destabilization, give people hope, stuff like that. Media and opposition bans a step towards authoritarianism. Correct. My opponent defends Zelensky's censorship as a wartime necessity. However, while some restrictions can be justified in war, outright suppression of opposition parties and independent media is a different issue. Depends on how bad you're losing, right? Uh, Western democracies like the US and UK during World War II had censorship, but they still allowed opposition parties to function. Yeah, I mean, the difference might be if the opposition parties are really closely aligned with Russia. Like, if we were at war with, we were at war with Germany and Japan and Italy, and if any of them had a significant uh, political influence, like they controlled like a party or a major portion of a party, would the United States have responded the same way? I would say that they shouldn't. If you lose to a pro-German party, or then that's fine. That's the citizens decided to lose and be worse off for that. But it's no reason to to suppress it. Zelensky's government has banned major opposition parties entirely, not just pro-Russian ones. It would help to have like a citation for this, because I was unaware of this, and that I don't know if that's true or not. Independent journalists have faced pressure and restrictions. I do know this. Some have went missing there. It is a war zone, but it appears some journalists have been accused of being Russian spies when really they're just critical of Ukraine, like obviously, and they're getting arrested when they go over there. Even those reporting Ukrainian military failures or corruption cases, not just pro-Russian narratives. Well, I mean, is that would be that wouldn't necessarily be outright pro-Russian, but if but you can't say it's not a pro-Russian narrative. That doesn't support their agenda. Silencing all dissent under the justification of war sets a dangerous precedent for post-war democracy. Key point: national security does not justify banning all opposition voices. A truly effective leader upholds democratic values even in war. Is this the no true effective leader like fallacy? I mean, because I would think that an effective leader, I would say I would separate ethical and effective. Right? What's the ethical thing to do? It would be consequences be damned. I'm gonna uphold democratic values. But effectiveness would be I'm gonna do whatever the hell it takes to win, and I can restore them later. Right? Because long term, keeping democratic values long term might imply doing whatever it takes. What's up, buddy? We gotta get in here.
Pause.
I'll just walk out. Go ahead. Oh, do you need my house on?
That movie is coming out on a Friday.
We gotta go see it. That's my son. He wants to watch the Minecraft movie. I'm not in a war zone, so I can do that. I would say that I do want to admit something to Pro here. I don't know if you're in UK, Ukraine. I don't know if you're fighting right now and writing these arguments on your phone or not. I do think that where I come from, it's like a place of arrogance, and it's easier for somebody in like a very comfortable environment to moralize and say, hey, we're going to protect democratic values no matter what, and we're going to protect them now in the short term, and consequences be damned. It's very easy for me to say if I don't have bombs dropping on me. So I want to acknowledge you that if you're in that situation, or even if you're not, and you just have relatives there, that's completely different than what you're going through. So, please excuse my arrogance when I'm judging this, because I'm not. Um, my heart goes out to you, but I'm not thinking with my heart here. I'm trying to think with my head to figure out who wins this. Okay. Uh, they were not part of Zelensky's strategic decisions, but rather due to Western support, Russian miscalculations, and tactical withdrawals. I agree. The Western support and the enemy's mistakes played a role. However, Commander-in-Chief Zelensky personally conducted negotiations and secured that support. That's a fair statement. Yeah, and I think you hinted on that to start with. So, and this doesn't change. Like, no leader can do anything completely alone. Like, I think you guys got like a shitty leader, and this is not the best leader to have during wartime. I do understand getting behind the commander in chief during wartime, but that's a lot of men dead. And this, I think, if he could come to the table sooner, then just work with Trump. Let Trump put them in. And I know from your perspective, it probably seems like what
I listen to your voice.
you listen to my. Come on here. I'm recording. You can say hi. But he these propagandists in the United States will tell you he's with Russia or something. He's not. Um, it's about coming to a deal, and he's famous for being a great deal maker. And you guys need a commander in chief that just let him get the best result for everybody. And he wants a result where, well, first of all, no result's going to be good for either side. Both sides are going to hate whatever result it is but whatever result it is, it's going to be the best result for the United States, which means the best result for Ukraine, because what's good for Ukraine is good for the United States, right? So whatever he negotiates, you just have to trust him. And I think it's silly that Zelensky's not just doing whatever the hell it takes to his part to secure so Trump can secure that peace, because he's gonna negotiate peace in a way that's favorable to you guys. So you guys should push back on that, and don't let this guy be don't let him get reelected just because he happened to be in office while a tragedy happened. You know, because it's like anybody that was in office during that time defending your country would look like a fucking hero. They would look like a hero. It doesn't mean they are one, or it doesn't mean someone else couldn't have came in there and did a better job. I would say the fact that he like um he keeps messing up these deals at the last second. I would say stop with it. He's asking for stupid stuff like a security guarantee when you know that don't. Okay. He's asking for like a security guarantee from NATO. Like you're not joining NATO. But if you can tie together American business interests with the Ukrainians, then that's as good as it gets. And I know that like Zelensky's criticism, I think, or some people around him are saying, well, we know that that works with Trump in power. We know that if Trump is there, then this will work. But he's not always going to be president. Look, the next president is going to be J.D. Vance. They have the same policies, and when that happens, there's a new census taken in 2028, and everybody's fleeing these blue states for red states. So we get even more electoral votes. It's Republicans are going to hold on to power for a while, a long while. You guys are safe. You just let him take a deal, and then you guys beef up security in these 20 years of Republican power here. You'll be fine. Regarding the claim that Zelensky suppresses opposition parties and restricts media freedom, it's important to note that such measures were implemented under martial law to protect national security. In March, yeah, okay, so you're going to have to explain. What you should be explaining here is how you roll these back afterwards when it benefits the people in power so much. It benefits the people in power to really be able to suppress opposition. So after the war's over, how do you roll it back? And once you give up this power to the government, you don't always have an option. You don't always get to roll this stuff back. Yes, democratic countries before have done a good job of rolling this stuff back, but they don't always work. They don't always get to roll back these measures. And so you got to be very, very careful with these restrictive measures on freedom, even during wartime. In March, the National Security and Defense Council suspended the activities of parties with ties to Russia. You see, that's fucked up. Who cares? Talk to your people. Get your people to be against these parties. Don't suppress the parties themselves. Actually have a discussion with your people and tell them why it's in their best interest to be pro-Ukrainian. But during wartime, I certainly understand some of these. I don't agree with them, but I understand them, and I do think that, like I said, I'm coming from a place of arrogance too, where I'm safe. So I don't have to worry about if things fail, right? On May 3rd, the Verkhovna Rada, excuse me if I don't pronounce anything right, passed a law banning, which this president signed on May 14th. Examples of banned parties include opposition bloc, party regions closely associated with. You know what? And this guy's a patriot too. Yanukovych. The Americans didn't like him, so let's. This guy was just deposed from power because of that. It was CIA meddling in your elections. That's another thing you need to understand. When you guys depose this guy, you might not like him, you might think he's a bad guy. Whatever. He's gone because the CIA meddled in your elections. Right? And you're basically okay with that. Socialists, the party that included former members of Bloc is that, yeah, you know what? All these parties, you're going to have reasons. You're going to have you have reasons for anything. Pro-Russian narratives. It's so easy to name anything a pro-Russian narrative that you don't like. That's all. This is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Some of these places may be like truly pro-Russian, right? And some may just have like some narratives that they favor that also Russia favors, but they're really pro-Ukrainian. They just happen to have some of the same they just happen to agree with some of the same narratives. And these some of these same people, the people in these parties, the people that lead these parties, the people in these parties, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them have or will or would be willing to fight to the death to protect Ukraine from Russia. But they just so happen to have some uh, some narratives that agree with the Russian narrative. You can't keep thinking like that about your fellow countrymen, thinking half of them are traitors. Shower? Oh, okay, I get it.
It's like 2 minutes so bad.
I know.
But
I'm not playing.
it didn't take his time.
So, Zelensky, commander in chief, played a key role in structuring Western support and mobilizing the nation. I think this is your strongest argument. The restriction of parties and media is a necessary measure in wartime aimed at protecting a country's sovereignty. Yeah, I really think you guys go overboard with that, but that's you know, mhm. Who am I to say that? I'm not there, right? Final rebuttal: the illusion of leadership. It should be a final rebuttal. This should be like an explanation of why you won. Uh, Military success: a victory of strategy or circumstance. My opponent insists that Zelensky played a role in Ukraine's military victories because he secured Western aid and maintained public morale. However, let's break this down. Uh, Western aid was not given because of Zelensky's genius negotiating skills. It was strategic necessity for NATO and the West. Um, I mean, yeah, but you're not gonna get support without strategy. He was there, um, like more. So he would have got some of that, but you don't know that he would have you don't know that he didn't maximize that support. And I think he got maybe far more than a lot of people would have. They supported Ukraine to contain Russia, protect European stability, and avoid direct military intervention. If securing aid equals great leadership, you have to look at the amount of aid. All right? So how much aid would he get compared to uh, an opponent, right? Or someone else? Then any leader in his position would have done the same. It wasn't unique to Zelensky. It's not. You're boiling this down to mere aid when it's about amount of aid. Ukrainian generals and soldiers exploited Russian failures to free Kherson and Kharkiv, not Zelensky's strategies. I mean, didn't he put a lot of these generals in place? This victories were made possible by Russia's logistical collapse, low troop morale, and terrible command decisions. Ukraine's military strategy was shaped by its experienced generals, trained over years of conflict, not by Zelensky, who had no military background before 2019. He still doesn't have one. I think it's actually disgraceful that he's playing dress up like this. It's just he's safe also. What is he? He's in Western countries. He's never getting grabbed. He's not like your typical foreign leader where you go into a country and you can grab him up and you can torture and kill him or put him up in front of a gun and keep him as a puppet. This guy's safe. So I understand he's trying to show some unity, but wear a goddamn suit. Hard truth. Zelensky is a figurehead in military matters, not a mastermind. Okay, if I don't know how that matters. If he plays his role good enough and it favors his country. Ukraine's battlefield successes came from a combination of Western intelligence, Russian missteps, and military independence. He playing not his decisions. He plays some role. Economic collapse, war, or mismanagement. My opponent contends that economic devastation in Ukraine is unavoidable as a result of war, while economies are harmed by war, an effective leader prevents it from spiraling out of control. It's exacerbated crisis under Zelensky. Government inefficiency has failed to stabilize production or retain businesses. You're not you're not retaining businesses while you're getting bombed. And yeah, okay, so they don't have their own military infrastructure. Not exactly something you could build up in 2 years, right? So you do have to depend a lot on foreign aid. A lot of it you're paying back, and it might leave you more poor, but with your sovereignty. Hard truth, leadership isn't about blaming circumstances, it's about finding solutions. Is anybody blaming, or are they just mentioning the circumstances and talking about what they have to do about the circumstances? Instead of adapting like the UK or US did in wartime. I don't understand this. Because you compared it to World War II, right? Or it was compared. And it's showing similar adaptations. Zelensky's government remains reactive and dependent on external aid, with no real long-term economic strategy. You have to bring this to a close before you can think long-term. Everything's short-term now, and it has to be short-term. The negotiation, I think he's focused on the long-term, and I think it's because I think he lacks some creative ability, so he's screwing that up a little bit. Media censorship and opposition bans, necessary or dangerous? It can be both. My opponent claims that suppressing opposition parties was essential for national security. Let's just call it what it is. A potential path down the road to authoritarian control. A leader who silences critics isn't protecting democracy, he's reshaping it to fit his narrative. Yet some pro-Russian elements existed, but banning entire parties without individual investigations. This is political purging, not safeguarding national security. If this was truly about wartime security, why do even anti-corruption reporters face suppression? Because if you think you're fighting for a corrupt government, then you might not fight as hard, okay? Democracies survive wars without silencing dissent. Zelensky's leadership can't handle opposition. It raises concerns about post-war Ukraine. Inclusion. The leadership is more than just appearances. My opponent portrays Zelensky as a hero during war. Well, I don't know that he really has did that. He's said he's one of the most effective leaders in the world. A strong leader doesn't just react to crisis; they anticipate and prevent them. Yeah, but how do they react? If you don't have time to anticipate, then how do you react? Because I think how you react is also going to be a pretty good indicator of what kind of leader you are. They always talk about the benefits of proactive leadership and how you can avoid being a reactive leader by being proactive enough, but you can't always avoid being a reactive leader. And in fact, the reason why people are so hard on the proactive is because most people are terrible as reactive leaders, right? So the worse you are as a reactive leader, the more proactive you need to be. Personally, I'm a pretty good reactive leader, but I'm also proactive because, ideally you're not reactive, right? So you don't want to be fearing being reactive, so you don't want to go too far with the proactive, but it's important to be both. But if you are in a situation like he was, where you're mostly reactive by necessity, then hopefully you're very good at being reactive. A strong leader doesn't ban. This is all this. A strong leader doesn't. A strong leader doesn't. A strong leader doesn't. These are all no true Scotsman's policies, right? But his opponent didn't call him out. The strong leader doesn't ban opposition under broad claims. He debates and defends democracy. Zelensky may be a symbol of Ukraine's resistance, but being a symbol doesn't make you a great leader. His military role is overstated. His economic policies are failing, and his restrictions on political opposition raises red flags about Ukraine's democratic future. If we're voting based on who is the most effective leader, we need to separate reality from emotional narratives. We need to focus on the resolution if that's what we're debating. Because right now it seems like you guys are just debating whether he's a good leader or not. The fact's clear. Zelensky's leadership continues to be questionable, reactive, this is and flawed. No matter how strong of a leader you are, it's going to be flawed. And I gotta tell you, the stronger of a leader you are, the more pushback you're gonna get, the more stupid a lot of people are gonna think you are, the more questionable your decisions are gonna be. Because a good leader isn't doing what normal people do; they're doing things differently. So it's always gonna seem questionable. The real test of leadership is not just surviving crisis. It can be, though, because crises are so hard to survive many times. Just the mere ability to survive can show great leadership. It's shaping a country's future beyond it. And maybe he can. Maybe he can win re-election when it's time and then shape it beyond it. Or maybe what happens here in this war can really shape the future of the country. So let's revisit. Crow has argued that Zelensky has done a lot of stuff to get international support, and I see that as mitigated by Khan, but not completely disproven, because he's talking about aid at all. So Pro is, I feel like he's talking about the amount of support he's gathered. Because even if you do nothing, you're gonna get some support, right? But Khan is saying, well, he's gonna get support either way. The amount's what's important. Khan states that there have been restrictions on freedom, and that's dangerous to democracy. But Pro points out examples of modern democracies, so people who have survived these authoritarian measures in the past doing just fine. So that doesn't show necessarily he's a bad leader. Khan is pointing out that Zelensky has not done anything for the long-term benefits of his country, but Pro points out early that he was dealing with a pandemic, a war, and a looming war, which he likely knew about. All right, so I think Pro is going to win based on the fact that a lot of his claims were mitigated and not disproven. And Khan's claims doesn't seem specific enough. This is a really close debate. It's hard to judge, but I think Pro gets a slight edge here. So I'm going to vote for him. I'm not going to do it on the screen because I want to submit this video. But he gets to vote.